Hello everyone and welcome. In today's video I'll be talking about the tragedy plot from Christopher Booker's The 7 Basic Plots, Why We Tell Stories. The tragedy plot begins in a similar way to Rags to Riches and The Quest. However, instead of the call being the first of our 5 stages, our heroes have to resist temptation. Because of this, the tragedy plot follows a completely different trajectory and our heroes are drawn towards something forbidden or are compelled to take much darker actions. In Dungeons & Dragons, there are of course plenty of tragic plots. Take one of my favourites, the Curse of Strahd for example. I very much like tragic stories and games where the supposed heroes don't always get what they want or realise the best outcome from themselves, and I do like to weave this into my games. Take my Shadow Dark solo one-shot for example. If you want to write an adventure that follows the structure of a tragic tale, then you need to understand its 5 stages. Anticipation. Our heroes are unfulfilled. Something is missing in their lives and they are fixating on some object, desire, or course of action that will make them feel complete. Think power, fame, or lust, the usual things that can corrupt a person. Dream. Outwardly, our heroes are achieving what they want. In Dungeons & Dragons, an example would be a character making a pact or deal with a demon. Yes, they are going to be living their best life, but at what cost? Spoiler alert, it's always something bad, and some level of trickery is usually involved from the demon's side. Frustration. Things unravel slowly or quickly for our heroes. They begin to overreact and slip into committing darker acts. Over time, this makes salvation less likely. At this point, a malevolent figure may appear who wants to cause them harm. Alternatively, this figure may also take the guise of a helper and pretend to be their friend when all the while they are secretly scheming. Nightmare. Everything descends into chaos. Whatever plans our heroes had of living happily ever after evaporate. They feel fear and despair as their lives fall apart. Fate and the forces of opposition close in. Their comeuppance is looming. Destruction. External forces or a heinous act of violence destroy our heroes. Few mourn them and the darkness lifts. Those who knew our fallen heroes rejoice at their passing. Tragedy plots are generally cautionary tales that show us there are consequences to our actions. This makes them an ideal structure for role-playing games, as you can really get into character development and fatal flaws. Basically, all the rewarding bits of storytelling. But how do you begin to write a truly tragic adventure? Fortunately, I have 5 helpful tips for that. But before I start, if you've enjoyed this video so far, please give it a like or subscribe, as it's a great way to support the channel. Without further ado, let's begin. Incorporate personal stakes. GMs achieve this by linking the character's backstory to the events or plot unfolding in the adventure. Perhaps a long-lost relative has suddenly resurfaced as an NPC, and maybe our hero carries some guilt as they felt they had abandoned them in the pursuit of a goal. Alternatively, one of our heroes may be tempted by something related to a fatal flaw. If they're impulsive and rush into things, perhaps a particularly pushy NPC wants them to do a favour for a few gold. It's only a small job after all, and easy money, so they say. Lastly, make sure there are consequences to your players' actions. Nothing happens in a vacuum. You need to show how they are responsible for their downfall. What decisions did they make that got them to where they are now? Create ethical conflicts. An ethical conflict occurs when right and wrong are not always clear. When a hero has to make choices in a tragedy, it often results in some suffering, no matter what they do to avoid it. When thinking of the scale of an ethical conflict, it can occur at individual and societal levels. So at the individual level, we have, for example, our heroes or NPCs who are in a similar social standing to them. At the societal level, choices are made by, say, the monarchy or other powerful figures, and these decisions affect many people. Also, keep in mind ends and means. What I mean by this is, do the ends justify the means? Does a morally right action result in a negative outcome? Alternatively, does a morally wrong action result in a positive outcome? As a GM, you can really build an engaging narrative when you introduce these types of opposing situations, as it forces your players to think and reflect. Consider a slow burn tragedy. Instead of a sudden downfall, you can eke out your hero's demise with a slow burn narrative arc or story. By slow burn, I don't mean add a ton of padding and fluff, as this will bog your adventure down. Making the plot boring. We want slow burn, not slow. Subtle foreshadowing is a powerful and effective technique you can deploy when crafting a slow burn. Introduce a pattern of small failures that foreshadow the succumbing to the fatal flaw. If hubris is a big part of a character's downfall, bring in examples or escalations of this. How will they be tested? Why do they keep failing? What is it that they are not learning? What is holding them back? Also, think about where everyone is when our protagonists are experiencing these darker moments. Isolation is often weaved into tragedies and is a catalyst for that descent into failure. Take my favourite tragic hero, Michael from The Godfather, and how his isolation worsens as he gets more powerful. Another thing to consider is how your NPCs will respond to your heroes. How will their perception of them change? Will some stop offering assistance? This can be interesting when you are playing a solo game, as you can roll for oracle checks to see how hostile they can be. Build an illusion of control. Building an illusion of control in a tragic plot makes more of a show-stopping downfall, as the story develops in such a way that the characters think they might be able to escape their fate. Except the GM and the other players know differently, or not, depending on the route the GM takes. The best tragedies build the illusion that the characters can change their fate, until they realise it's too late and they've been the architects of their own demise all along. If we use our Godfather example again, Michael believes he's only one step away from building a legitimate empire, and it's this belief that propels him forward to make even more damning choices. Use prophecies and bad omens that build up to the inevitable struggle against destiny. Introduce small successes that suggest whatever the characters are going through will work out in the end. Introduce NPCs who actually overturn their fate, suggesting our heroes can do the same. Use signs and themes to build tension. Tragedy is most powerful when reinforced by strong themes and symbols. An off the top of my head example is using an object that, while imbues the owner with power, also takes something from them. Perhaps after a bloody skirmish, one of our heroes claims a magical sword that, while it makes them more powerful, also corrupts their soul. This, of course, represents a price our character is paying to grow in power. Other ideas to consider include using weather or environmental changes to mirror the downfall. In my Anne Boleyn adventure, for example, the game begins during a vicious tempest or storm which mirrors the discontent and changes England was going through. Introduce imagery that reinforces tragic themes, such as haunting dream sequences. Think about what the person sees during these dreams. Do they see any animals, and if so, what lore is associated with them? Take ravens, for example. They can represent death, transformation and rebirth, among lots of other things, of course. Creating past lore to mirror our hero's tragic downfall. Think about fables and cautionary tales. Do these stories represent our hero's current adventure timeline? Do these tales suggest our heroes can't escape their fate? What character types or NPCs should you include in your tragic adventure? To make your tragedy more meaningful, innocent NPCs need to get hurt, and Christopher Booker mentions the 4 different types of bystanders who suffer due to tragic heroes' actions. Also, the examples Booker gives are all from Shakespeare plays. The first one is the good man, and this is represented by Polonius from Hamlet. Second, we have the rival, who is Duncan from Macbeth. The innocent girl is Desdemona from Othello, and a temptress is Cleopatra from Antony and Cleopatra. If you really like tragedies, you'll enjoy my video on Anakin Skywalker's fatal flaws and how we can apply what we know about him to creating characters in Dungeons & Dragons and other TTRPGs. I've also put together a playlist on the other 6 plots in this series, so you can learn more about overcoming the monster and the quest, for example. Before I go, if you've enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe so more people just like you can find it. Anyway, that's all for today, folks, and I'll see you in the next one.